The sky trembled with the roar of engines, massive, monstrous warships descending from a void. For the first time in human history, an invasion force from the stars was not a rumor. It wasn't a distant threat or a warning. It was reality. The Trakhar were here. Humanity had always feared the unknown, the alien forces beyond their comprehension. But the Trakhar? They were something else entirely. For millennia, they had hunted, slaughtered, and consumed entire civilizations. Their name alone struck terror into the hearts of species across the galaxy. The Trakhar were apex predators. There was nothing they feared, nothing that could stand against them. And now Earth was next. The ground rumbled as a wave of alien ships blotted out the sun. Towering ships shaped like jagged, gleaming predators sliced through the atmosphere, their hulls gleaming with a metallic sheen that reflected the chaos below. Below them, the city of New York lay in disarray. People screamed and ran, their fragile human lives no match for the wrath of the Trakhar. In mere moments, the alien invaders had turned a bustling metropolis into a battlefield. The Trakhar didn't land. They didn't need to. They simply hovered over the city, releasing an endless barrage of energy blasts that incinerated anything caught beneath them. Buildings collapsed, the sky darkened with smoke and ash, and the roar of the invaders was drowned out by the panicked cries of humanity. From the top of a nearby skyscraper, Commander Lila Hayes of Earth's Special Forces watched the devastation unfold. She stood firm, her gaze fixed on the horizon, where the monstrous ships continued their descent. A woman of few words, Lila had seen her fair share of chaos. But this was something else, an existential threat she had only read about in history books. "They're here," she muttered to herself, the weight of her words hanging heavy in the air. The Trakhar were not just invaders. They were predators, ancient creatures whose hunger for dominance stretched back to the earliest records of the galaxy. In their wake, entire worlds had fallen silent. They were not interested in diplomacy or negotiation. They conquered through fear, destruction, and annihilation. And now, Earth was their prey. In the control room of Earth's Defense Command, the atmosphere was thick with urgency. The Trakhar's arrival had triggered immediate responses from every corner of Earth. Militaries across the globe scrambled to form a defense, but no one truly knew what they were facing. The reports were vague, fragmented. No one had ever survived a full-scale Trakhar assault. General James Riley paced back and forth, his mind racing as he processed the situation. His voice was low, but sharp, cutting through the tension. "We've got one shot at this. The Trakhar are ruthless. We've got to hit them where it hurts. But first, we need to understand how they operate. We can't afford to waste lives blindly." Lila, who had just entered the room, met his gaze with a steely determination. "We don't need to understand them, General. We need to survive." She was right. The Trakhar didn't care about diplomacy. They cared about victory. They would stop at nothing until Earth was a footnote in their history of destruction. The general nodded grimly. "Then we'll fight." As humanity prepared for war, the Trakhar were already preparing for the hunt. Their leader, Karath the Unyielding, stood at the helm of a lead warship, watching the chaos unfold below. His cold, predatory gaze never left the planet, even as the screams of the humans below reached his ears through his ship's sensors. The Trakhar had never lost. They would not start now. "They are nothing," Karatha's voice echoed in the command chamber. "We will break them in a matter of days." But even the mighty Trakhar were unaware of one simple truth. Humanity, though small, had a will to survive that had defied the odds time and time again. No matter how many times Earth had been knocked down, it always stood back up. And this time, it would fight back. Back on the streets, Lila and her team mobilized. The odds were stacked against them, but they were used to the impossible. She knew the Trakhar were coming for Earth's heart, but the human spirit wasn't something even they could predict. As the first wave of Trakhar shock troops landed and began their terrifying march, Lila and her squad moved into position. This was just the beginning, but Earth had never been so united, so determined to protect its future. And humanity's fight for survival? It was just getting started. The Trakhar thought they had already won. They had never encountered a species like humanity, a people with nothing left to lose and everything to fight for. And in their arrogance, they underestimated Earth's greatest weapon, the unwillingness to surrender. Humanity had been thrown into chaos, but from the wreckage rose the unyielding resolve of those who refused to be crushed. The Trakhar, with their unmatched strength and brutal tactics, believed that the humans would bend, cower, and break under their assault. What they didn't anticipate was how quickly the human spirit could turn fear into ferocity. In the heart of New York, a group of soldiers gathered in a makeshift command center. The walls were hastily reinforced with concrete and steel, remnants of a city now trying to hold onto its last shred of hope. Lila Hayes stood at the center, her face set in grim determination. Around her, a team of elite soldiers was preparing for the impossible, a direct assault against the Trakhar invaders. "We hit them where it hurts," Lila said, her voice calm but firm. "We don't wait for them to come to us. We bring the fight to them." The plan was simple but dangerous. Humanity's technology was primitive compared to the Trakhar, but Earth had something the alien predators didn't: adaptability. The Trakhar might have wiped out entire civilizations, but they had never fought an enemy that could turn fear into a weapon. Lila's team had spent the last few days gathering intelligence from scattered resistance groups, piecing together the invaders' movements. Now they had found an opening, an unguarded transport ship near one of the Trakhar's smaller landing zones. It wasn't much, but it was a chance. If they could sabotage the ship, it would send a clear message. Humans were not to be underestimated. In the darkened streets, the first signs of resistance emerged. Soldiers clad in mismatched armor and carrying whatever weapons they could find formed a line in front of a Trakhar transport. Lila's team, equipped with experimental energy weapons designed to pierce the Trakhar's thick armor, moved quickly through the shadows. They knew that time was running out. The longer they waited, the stronger the Trakhar would grow. A sudden explosion lit up the night sky, shaking the ground beneath their feet. The Trakhar were here, and they weren't taking any chances. The resistance soldiers scrambled into position as the hulking alien figures emerged from the shadows, their eyes glowing with malice. Their massive forms were nearly impervious to anything Earth's forces could throw at them. But the humans had learned quickly it wasn't about matching strength, it was about exploiting weaknesses. Lila signaled to her team, "Go." The attack was swift and precise. One by one, the soldiers unleashed a barrage of plasma fire, targeting weak spots in the Trakhar's armor. The energy weapons cut through the alien metal like a hot knife through butter. The Trakhar roared in anger and pain, their shocked troops stumbling as they tried to regroup. But the humans were relentless. They had seen their cities burn, their families slaughtered, and their world threatened with extinction. Now they fought with everything they had left, because they knew this was their last stand. As the battle raged on, something unexpected happened. The Trakhar began to hesitate. For the first time in their long history of conquest, they weren't the ones instilling fear. They were the ones who were being hunted. The human resistance, though vastly outnumbered, struck fear into the alien predators. The Trakhar had grown used to the weakness of the species they conquered. But humans? Humans didn't fear the unknown. They fought it. They adapted. Back at the command center, General Riley watched the live feeds from the front lines. His jaw tightened as he saw the Trakhar forces starting to fall back. They hadn't expected this. Humans were actually winning battles, striking harder and faster than the invaders anticipated. "Is this real?" one of the officers asked, his voice filled with disbelief. Riley leaned forward. "It's real. But we're not out of the woods yet. This is just the beginning. The Trakhar won't stop until they've wiped us out completely." But even as the general spoke, a shift was taking place. The resistance fighters, empowered by their success, were spreading the word. Humanity had fought back. And in the heart of Earth's battered cities, a new, unshakable hope began to rise. People were no longer cowering in fear. They were fighting for their homes, their families, their planet. Lila's team had completed their mission. The transport was disabled, and the track car had been sent into disarray. But the victory came at a cost. Several soldiers lay wounded, their injuries a testament to the brutality of the Trackar's retaliatory strike. As Lila surveyed the battlefield, she couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. Humanity had faced an unimaginable enemy, and they hadn't just survived. They had fought back. "This is just the beginning," she muttered, her eyes scanning the horizon, where the Trackar ships still loomed overhead. "We've got them on the ropes. Now we finish this." The war had just begun, and humanity was no longer a victim. The Trackar had come to Earth expecting an easy conquest, but they would soon learn that humanity wasn't like the other species they had decimated. Earth would not go down without a fight. And in the heart of every human soldier, there was a fire that the Trackar would never be able to extinguish. It was a harsh reality that no one had prepared for. The first true loss. The Trackar had shown no mercy, and now, humanity was learning the true cost of war. The city of Chicago was burning. The skyline, once a symbol of human achievement, now stood as a smoldering monument to the brutal efficiency of the Trackar's weapons. The aliens' overwhelming assault had struck with a precision no one had anticipated. The first few days of resistance had given humanity a false sense of hope, but the Trackar's full power had now been unleashed. General Riley watched from a satellite feed as the fires consumed the remnants of the city. His fists clenched. The humans had done everything they could, but the Trackar were relentless. Their relentless bombardment had destroyed entire neighborhoods, killing thousands, and their forces were only growing stronger. It was a loss that cut deeper than any defeat before. The city was gone, and with it, a sense of invincibility that humanity had clung to since the beginning of the conflict. The Trackar were no longer just an invader. They were a force of nature, unstoppable and all-consuming. In the remains of what used to be a thriving urban center, Lila stood in the midst of the destruction, trying to make sense of it all. She had seen countless battles, but this felt different. The Trackar had not only destroyed the city, but they had also broken something within the human spirit. "This is what they want," Lila muttered to herself. "They want us to feel the weight of this loss." Her team, battered and bruised, but still standing, gathered around her. They were few of the fortunate ones, surviving the Trackar's initial assault and now being thrust into a second wave of devastation. No one spoke. The weight of the loss was too much for words. "What do we do now?" Sergeant Ortiz asked, his voice hoarse, eyes hollow from exhaustion. Lila took a deep breath. The question weighed on her, too. She had led her team through numerous battles. But this was different. Humanity had lost its first major stronghold. Chicago had been one of the last remaining bastions of resistance, and now it was just another casualty in the Trackar's wake. "We keep fighting," Lila said, her voice steady, though the doubt lingered in her chest. "We have to show them we're not finished yet." But the truth was, humanity was on the brink. The war was far from over, and the Trackar had only just begun. Lila knew this loss would only make the invaders bolder, more vicious. Earth's forces would need to regroup, rebuild, and prepare for the full-scale retaliation that was sure to follow. Back in the command center, General Riley received the updated casualty reports. The numbers were staggering. More than 1 million dead, countless more wounded, and every major city now reduced to rubble. The Trackar had done exactly what they always did. They struck fast, with ruthless precision, and left nothing but death in their wake. "They're not just here to conquer," Riley said quietly, as if speaking to himself. "They're here to break us." The realization hit him harder than anything before. The Trackar had never encountered a species that could resist them. And now, for the first time, humanity was learning that even the greatest of spirits could be shattered under the weight of true destruction. But General Riley wasn't ready to accept defeat. "Not yet. We'll rebuild," he said with a fire in his eyes. "This isn't over." As Lila surveyed the devastation around her, she couldn't help but feel the gravity of the situation. The first loss had struck deep, and it left a wound that wouldn't heal easily. But there was still a part of her, small, fragile, that believed in humanity's resolve. The Trakhar had underestimated Earth's tenacity. They thought that breaking a few cities would end the war, but they hadn't counted on the human will to fight back. The Trakhar may have taken Chicago, Lila said, her voice low but determined. But they haven't taken us. Her words, though heavy, were the truth. Humanity had lost the battle, but the war was far from over. The Trakhar had made a grave mistake. They had underestimated the one thing they couldn't destroy: human resolve. And Lila Hayes wasn't going to let Earth fall. Not now. Not after everything they had already sacrificed. As the sun set over the ruined city, the shadow of the Trakhar loomed over the planet. But in the hearts of the survivors, there burned a flame that even the most brutal invaders couldn't extinguish. The fight was far from over. The loss of Chicago was a wound, but it was one that would make humanity stronger. And in the end, the Trakhar would learn the hard truth. Earth wasn't going down without a fight. The Trakhar had one fatal flaw. They never expected humanity to fight with something more than weapons. They had underestimated the power of ingenuity, the ability to adapt, evolve, and build. And now, humanity's final weapon was ready. In the heart of what remained of Washington, D.C., a team of brilliant scientists and military engineers worked feverishly in the underground laboratories. The walls, thick with the scars of destruction, held the secrets to humanity's last chance. A weapon was being forged, not just any weapon, but something capable of challenging the Trakhar's seemingly invincible forces. Dr. Isabel Grant, one of the lead scientists, stood over a massive holographic display, her eyes scanning data streams at lightning speed. The weapon they had created was unlike anything the world had ever seen, a hybrid of human technology and salvaged Trakhar tech, designed to exploit the very weaknesses the invaders had once believed impenetrable. But time was against them. The Trakhar were relentless, and humanity's window to strike back was closing fast. "Are we sure this will work?" Lila Hayes asked as she stepped into the lab, her voice cutting through the tension that filled the room. The general's voice echoed in her mind. This weapon had to succeed, or Earth's final resistance would collapse. The stakes had never been higher. Dr. Grant didn't look up, but the conviction in her voice was unwavering. It has to. Back at the front lines, the remnants of humanity's military forces were regrouping for what would likely be the final confrontation. The Trakhar, ever confident in their superiority, had begun to escalate their attacks. With every passing day, their forces grew bolder, more vicious. They had tasted blood, and now they wanted the entire planet. Lila's Special Forces unit, now fractured and battle-worn, had been tasked with an impossible mission: infiltrate one of the Trakhar's massive warships, get close enough to deliver the weapon, and hope for the best. The odds were slim, and the risk was catastrophic. But it was the only chance they had left. As the team gathered around a battered war table in a darkened command post, Lila couldn't shake the weight of the moment. They were about to make a play that would determine the fate of humanity, and not everyone would make it out alive. "This is it," Lila said, looking each of her soldiers in the eye. "We're going in. No second chances. We make it to that ship, we disable their shields, and we deliver the payload. And we do it now, before the Trakhar realize what we're capable of." Her words were more than a plan. They were a rallying cry. It wasn't just about a weapon. It was about humanity's will to survive. The Trakhar had made one fatal miscalculation. They'd thought humanity's resolve would break under pressure. But Earth had only one response to invaders like the Trakhar: fight until the last breath. The Trakhar were growing frustrated. Their conquest had been swift at first, but Earth wasn't falling as easily as they had predicted. Reports of strange human tactics, ambushes, sabotage, and highly coordinated strikes began to surface. They couldn't understand how a species so primitive had adapted so quickly. But Karoth, the Trakhar leader, was not one to question his superiority. "We'll crush them," he growled to his commanders, his voice as cold and merciless as the ships he commanded. "No more delays. We'll raze this world to the ground." But even as he spoke, his gaze lingered on the displays showing the human resistance's movements. The Trackar had never faced a foe like this. They could feel the shift in the balance of power, but it was too late. Humanity had already begun to turn the tide. Lila's team made their move under the cover of night. They slipped through the shadows, infiltrating the Trackar's heavily guarded perimeter. Their target, a massive warship orbiting Earth, bristling with weapons and shields capable of obliterating entire cities in seconds. But humanity's weapon was designed to cut through the Trackar's strongest defense. They had to succeed. The journey was treacherous. Every step was a risk, every corner a potential death trap. The team advanced with military precision, avoiding detection by the Trackar patrols that roamed the ship. The air was thick with tension. Each soldier knew that the moment they were discovered, their mission and their lives would be over. As they neared the ship's core, Lila felt the weight of the weapon in her hands. It was more than a tool of war. It was humanity's last hope. The moment they delivered it, everything would change. But there was no turning back. In the heart of the Trackar warship, a quiet hum filled the air. The weapon was in position. It was time. Lila gave the signal, and the team initiated the final phase of the operation. The weapon's energy surged to life, its power building as it prepared to unleash on the Trackar's shields. The soldiers held their breath as the countdown began. This was humanity's shot at survival. If this failed, Earth's resistance would crumble under the weight of the Trackar's overwhelming power. The hum of the weapon grew louder, vibrating through the ship's metal walls. And then, with a deafening roar, the weapon unleashed its devastating force. An explosion of energy unlike anything the Trackar had ever encountered. The warship's shields flickered and sputtered, struggling to maintain their integrity. Lila's heart raced. The weapon had worked. For the first time, humanity had struck a true blow against the invaders. But as the energy pulses reverberated through the Trackar ship, she knew this was just the beginning. The real fight was only just starting. The Trackar would come for Earth with everything they had, and humanity would be ready. The Trackar had underestimated humanity's ability to adapt, but now they were about to learn the most dangerous truth. Once a species pushes back from the brink of annihilation, nothing can stop them. The shockwave from the attack had barely subsided when the first signs of the Trackar's retaliation began. Earth's forces had finally dealt a blow to the invaders, but the victory came at a price. Humanity had launched a weapon so powerful it momentarily crippled the Trackar's warship. But now, the Trackar were angry. And when they were angry, worlds burned. General Riley watched the live feeds from across the planet, his face grim. The battlefield had shifted, but not in humanity's favor. The Trackar, having sustained damage, were reorganizing, gathering every available force for an all-out assault. The human resistance was on the edge, and Earth's survival hinged on whether their last chance could hold against the full fury of the invaders. "This is it," Riley muttered, turning to his officers. "They're coming for us all." On the ground, Lila's unit had scattered across various zones to coordinate the defense. Her team had delivered the weapon, but now they were scattered and outnumbered, forced into guerrilla tactics to survive. The success of their strike had been a spark, but the firestorm that followed was relentless. Trackar warships now hovered over every major city, prepared to wipe humanity off the map. Lila had never felt so outmatched. The Trackar weren't just invaders, they were predators, driven by a need to dominate, to destroy. And this time, they weren't taking any chances. As Trackar shock troops swarmed the streets, Lila's team was forced into the shadows, relying on surprise, speed, and limited resources. "We need to regroup," Lila said, her voice firm despite the uncertainty in her eyes. "We've got the weapon, but we need a plan. Now." "Agreed," Sergeant Ortiz replied, his face streaked with dirt and blood. "But I don't know how much longer we can hold." Humanity's defense was crumbling, but there was a glimmer of hope. In the shadows of ruined cities, small pockets of resistance continued to strike back at the Trackar forces. Makeshift battalions, formed from survivors and soldiers alike, fought with a tenacity born of desperation. Every ambush, every sabotage operation, no matter how small, was a message. Humanity was not done yet. "We can't stop," Lila said, rallying her team. "The Trackar want to break us, but that's where they're wrong. We're still here, and as long as we're breathing, we fight." In the dead of night, the team moved through the wreckage, launching hit-and-run operations on Trackar supply lines. It wasn't enough to turn the tide, but it was enough to stall the enemy, to show them that Earth wasn't going down without a fight. The humans had learned one undeniable truth: the Trackar were strong, but they were not invincible. Meanwhile, deep within the Trackar command ship, Koroth seethed. His forces had been delayed by the unexpected human resistance, and his fleet was beginning to lose patience. He had never encountered a species so relentless, so unwilling to accept defeat. But even as the human resistance fought, Koroth knew one thing for certain. There was no species in the galaxy that could survive against the might of the Trackar for long. "Prepare for the final push," Koroth ordered his commanders, his eyes cold with malice. "We will destroy their cities, their armies, and their hope. There will be nothing left." Back on Earth, as the Trackar mobilized for their final assault, the human resistance had to make a decision: retreat and hope for survival, or go on the offensive and risk everything. Lila knew that if humanity was going to survive, they couldn't just play defense. The time had come to take the fight back to the Trackar. "We hit them where it hurts," Lila said. "We take out their command structure, their warships. We don't just wait for them to come, we make them regret ever stepping foot on this planet." The resistance had never been more unified. They were wounded, desperate, and outgunned, but they weren't broken. Lila's team gathered what remained of their resources, planning a final strike that could shift the war in humanity's favor. As the Trackar forces closed in, humanity's resistance, battered but not broken, began to rally. The tipping point had come. It was no longer a question of survival. It was a question of how much humanity was willing to sacrifice to win. The Trackar had made one crucial mistake. They had underestimated human resolve. Now, as Earth soldiers prepared for their most daring assault, the invaders were about to learn a brutal truth. Humanity was not afraid of death. In fact, they had already faced it. And now, they were ready to make the Trackar pay for every inch of ground they had taken. The war was far from over, but it was about to become one the Trackar would never forget. The time for retreat had passed. Earth's final resistance was about to clash head-on with the Trackar invaders. If humanity was to survive, this would be the fight that defined their future, or ended it forever. The battlefield stretched across what was once a thriving metropolis. Now it was a wasteland. Fires smoldered in the ruins of skyscrapers, and the air was thick with the acrid stench of burnt metal and ozone. The Trackar's warships hovered above like vultures, casting massive shadows over the survivors below. They had obliterated city after city, leaving nothing but death in their wake. But humanity was done running. General Riley stood at the edge of the makeshift command post, his eyes fixed on the horizon where the Trackar fleet waited. His mind was sharp, despite the exhaustion that had begun to take root. The weight of leadership had never been heavier. This wasn't just about tactics anymore. This was about survival. The resistance had one chance to turn the tide: a full-scale assault on the Trackar command ship, the heart of their military might. If they could destroy it, they could cripple the invaders' ability to continue their conquest. But the cost would be staggering. The plan had been set into motion, and now there was no turning back. Lila stood at the front of her unit, watching the same skyline, feeling the same weight of the moment. Every soldier had been through hell, but this was something different. This was the end. Either humanity would take its place in the galaxy or be erased from existence. "We've been pushed to the edge," Lila said, her voice steady despite the chaos around her. "But we're still here, and we'll fight until we can't. This is it. This is the last stand." Her words were a rallying cry. Each soldier gathered around her knew the odds. The Trackar were stronger, faster, and had far more resources. But there was one thing they had that the Trackar could never understand: an unyielding will to survive, no matter the cost. And today, they would use that will to strike the invaders where it would hurt the most. The operation began with a deafening roar. The Resistance's ground forces surged forward, their makeshift weapons blazing as they assaulted track car positions. Tanks, fighter jets, and ground troops all moved as one, an unstoppable wave of humanity's last hope. The track car retaliated with unrelenting force, unleashing their most destructive weapons. Massive energy beams tore through the air, incinerating everything in their path. But the human forces pressed on, refusing to retreat. At the same time, Lila's team, along with the most elite units of Earth's resistance, launched their mission to infiltrate the track car command ship. The assault was chaos, as waves of soldiers fought tooth and nail against the alien invaders. Each step forward was paid for with blood, but humanity's resolve never faltered. "This is it," Lila shouted as they moved through the trench-lined streets, inching ever closer to their target. "For Earth. For our future." The track car forces, stunned by the ferocity of the assault, began to regroup. But they weren't prepared for what would come next. On the track car command ship, Karath seethed with rage. His fleet had been caught off guard by the sheer audacity of the human assault. The enemy was far more resilient than he had ever anticipated. It was frustrating, humiliating even. He had underestimated humanity's strength, and now that mistake was costing him. "Activate all remaining weapons," Karath growled. "No more games. Destroy them." But even as the command was given, a chilling realization began to dawn on Karath. The humans were not acting out of desperation. They were acting with purpose. Each strike, each move they made, was calculated. They were drawing the track car into a trap. And Karath knew that once the humans had completed their final phase of their operation, it would be too late to turn back. The battle raged for hours, with neither side willing to relent. Explosions rocked the streets as humans and track car collided in brutal combat. Lila's team was deep within the track car ship now, infiltrating the core, where the fate of the entire war would be decided. The weapon they carried was humanity's greatest chance at victory, an experimental energy pulse designed to overload the track car's core systems, disabling their fleet and crippling their command structure. "Almost there," Lila said, her breath ragged from the fight. "We can do this. We end here." The team moved quickly through the ship's narrow corridors, taking down track car guards with ruthless precision. Every step was a gamble, every room a potential death trap. But they pressed on, knowing that failure wasn't an option. Finally, they reached the control room. Lila stepped forward, her pulse racing. With one swift motion, she activated the device. The hum of the weapon grew louder, the energy building inside the core. The track car command ship trembled. And then, the explosion was deafening. A massive pulse of energy surged through the ship, spreading outwards, disabling shields, systems, and weaponry. The track car were stunned. Their massive fleet had been brought to its knees in an instant. The balance of power had shifted. But even as the ship began to collapse, Karath roared in fury. "You think this is over? You think you've won? You're mistaken." Lila and her team barely escaped the collapse of the track car ship, fighting their way back to the surface. The ground trembled as the track car's mighty command ship fell from the sky, its destruction sending shockwaves across the battlefield. The humans had won a major victory, but the war was far from over. As Lila looked out over the battlefield, she saw the change in the air. The track car were reeling. Humanity's resistance, though battered and bruised, had broken the invaders' command, dealt a blow they could never recover from. The track car had underestimated Earth's resolve. And now, as humanity stood victorious for the first time, they would make sure that the galaxy would never forget the price of underestimating the will of mankind.